You play with me, but I didn't know you play with me, bitch.
Oh, come on, get out the car. You gotta get out the car now.
First time it argues the rights of an unborn child when it comes to the mother being accused of a crime, and only Local 10 has the never-before-seen video that is now at the center of this case. Sanela Sabovic has the exclusive.
She was loved. As many people here showing it right here in this spot right now. Her kids do miss her. This is what hurts me the most too. I do want justice. She took my daughter. She left 3 small babies behind. Like, she needs to serve some time. She needs to do.
There's a lot of people that is not familiar faces, but they came and they showed my sister love.
That's what matters.
And that's all that matters. No one came here on any.
2 women, once strangers, step into the same Uber on a warm Miami night. The city is alive with celebration, but inside the SUV, an argument ignites. A confrontation that would end with a single, fatal gunshot. In the back seat lies Gladys Yvette Borcela, a 28-year-old mother of 3, her life tragically cut short. Behind bars sits Natalia Harrell, a 24-year-old pregnant woman claiming self-defense. But this case takes an even stranger turn. Natalia now argues that her unborn baby is being unlawfully imprisoned alongside her, sparking outrage and debate across the nation. What really happened inside that Uber? Was this a desperate act of protection or a calculated crime? And could an unborn child hold the key to freedom? This is the story that has gripped the legal system and divided public opinion. A tale of lives intertwined by fate and shattered in a moment. Stay with us as we uncover the chilling truth behind that fateful ride, the lives it destroyed, and the unprecedented legal battle now unfolding. Gladys Yvette Borcela was a 28-year-old mother of 3, a woman full of life and love. She was known for her infectious smile and her unwavering dedication to her children. Her friends described her as the kind of person who could light up a room, a protective mother, a loyal friend, and someone who always found a way to see the good in others. That night, like many others, her thoughts were with her children. She worked hard to give them a future, balancing her responsibilities as a mother with her dreams of something greater. But on this night, Gladys wasn't with her children. She was out with friends, hoping to unwind and enjoy herself. The streets of Miami were alive, filled with laughter, music, and celebration. Gladys was no stranger to these moments of joy, but she could never have imagined what was about to unfold. Then there was Natalia Harrell, a 24-year-old woman whose life was also at a crossroads. Natalia was expecting a child, a fact that had shaped much of her recent life. She was described by some as ambitious and headstrong, but others saw a different side, one marked by impulsiveness and a fiery temper. On that fateful night, Natalia and Gladys found themselves in the same circle of friends, 2 women with vastly different lives, brought together by a shared connection. As the night wore on, decisions were made that would change everything. A group of friends piled into an Uber, a black Escalade cruising through the vibrant streets of Miami. For most, it was just another ride, but for Gladys and Natalia, it would be their last shared moment. Why were they in the car together? Was this a chance encounter or something more? Their connection that night seemed simple enough, but beneath the surface, tensions were brewing. Tensions that no one in that car could have foreseen. The laughter and chatter of the evening gave way to something else entirely. What began as a routine ride through the city would soon lead to a confrontation that would leave one woman dead, another in handcuffs, and a nation asking, what really happened that night? The night seemed ordinary as the black Escalade weaved through the city streets. Inside, the hum of conversation and the occasional laughter echoed against the car's leather interior. Miami's nightlife glowed through the windows. Bright neon lights, bustling crowds, and the rhythmic pulse of music that spilled out of clubs and bars. The passengers in the car were wrapping up their night, looking forward to what they thought would be a simple ride home. Gladys sat in the back seat, her energy vibrant but calm as she likely reflected on the evening. Natalia, seated nearby, was quiet at first, her expression unreadable. Perhaps it was the exhaustion of the night, or perhaps something else was stirring just beneath the surface. Words were exchanged, small talk at first, casual and unremarkable. And then Natalia flashed crisp white, but then something shifted. The air inside the vehicle seemed to grow heavier. A simple comment, a glance, a moment of tension, these small sparks began to set the stage for what was about to unfold. The conversations turned sharper, the tone edged with something unspoken. The laughter that had filled the car earlier faded away, replaced by the unmistakable weight of disagreement. It was subtle at first. Natalia's voice grew louder, her words more pointed. Gladys responded, trying to hold her ground, but the tension between the two women became undeniable. The other passengers exchanged glances, unsure of whether to intervene or stay silent. The driver, focused on the road ahead, likely wondered if the atmosphere in the car would settle or escalate further. The argument, though brief, carried an intensity that seemed to envelop the small space. The walls of the Escalade became a stage for conflict, a clash of personalities, frustrations, and emotions that no one had anticipated. Outside, the city carried on, oblivious to what was happening inside the car. But no one in that vehicle could have known what was coming next. In a matter of moments, everything would change. A single act would transform a routine ride into a crime scene, and the lives of everyone involved would be altered forever. It was in the early hours of the morning when the Uber was ordered. The streets were quieter now, the vibrant energy of Miami's nightlife beginning to fade. Inside the Escalade, the passengers settled into their seats, their night of celebration winding down. The driver glanced back to confirm everyone was in, then pulled into traffic. The city's glow flickered on the windows, and for a brief moment, everything seemed routine. But within the confined space of the car, the atmosphere was anything but calm. The group had been out together, but not everything about the evening had gone smoothly. Tensions, subtle at first, had begun to emerge earlier in the night. Words exchanged at the venue, looks that lingered too long, disagreements that weren't forgotten. Whatever had been simmering in the background now followed them into the vehicle. Natalia sat upright, her posture rigid. Her voice cut through the murmurs in the car, sharp and unwavering. Gladys, seated a short distance away, responded with measured words, trying to de-escalate. But the tone between the two women began to shift. Each word exchanged added a new layer to the growing tension. It was hard to say what sparked the next moment. A raised voice, a sudden movement, something tipped the balance. The other passengers grew quiet, their presence almost invisible now as the focus narrowed entirely on Natalia and Gladys. The argument became louder, more personal, the kind of conflict that no longer feels like it's about the words being spoken, but something deeper. Something that had been building for far longer than this ride. The driver, now alert, stole glances at the rearview mirror. He later recalled how the intensity between the two women unsettled him, but as a driver, there was little he could do other than focus on the road ahead. His primary concern was to get everyone to their destination safely. And then, in a single moment, the night took a turn no one could have imagined. Natalia's hand moved quickly, almost too fast to process. The unmistakable sound of a firearm being drawn cut through the noise. Before anyone could react, a single shot echoed through the vehicle. The car jerked slightly, though whether it was from the sound or the driver's shock, no one could say. In the backseat, Gladys slumped over. Silence filled the vehicle. A deafening, hollow silence. The only sounds were the uneven breaths of the passengers and the driver's panicked voice as he tried to make sense of what had just happened. The Uber came to an abrupt stop on the side of the road. The driver, shaken but instinctively responsible, exited the vehicle to call for help. Meanwhile, the passengers inside were frozen, their minds struggling to piece together the events that had unfolded in mere seconds. Natalia, still holding the firearm, seemed detached from the chaos around her. The first police report came in minutes later. A call to dispatch detailed a shooting inside a moving vehicle. Officers arrived swiftly, their lights cutting through the early morning darkness. What they found was a scene that would haunt everyone involved. A young mother, lifeless in the backseat, and a woman holding a weapon, her expression unreadable. Natalia was detained on the spot. The firearm was secured as evidence, and witnesses were questioned. The driver recounted the moments leading up to the shooting, his voice trembling as he spoke. News of the incident spread quickly, and within hours the tragic story began making headlines. Gladys Yvette Borcela's life had been cut short, and the city now demanded answers. What had caused the argument to escalate so quickly? Why had Natalia brought a firearm into the car that night? And, perhaps the most haunting question of all, Could this have been prevented? The questions began almost immediately after the crime. What could have driven Natalia Harrell, a 24-year-old pregnant woman, to pull the trigger that night? Was it an act of self-defense, a moment of unrestrained anger, or something more calculated? To understand what happened inside that car, we must first take a closer look at Natalia's past and the events leading up to that fateful moment. Natalia Harrell had always been described as assertive, a young woman unafraid to speak her mind. But those who knew her well saw more than just confidence. There were moments when her assertiveness crossed into impulsivity, a pattern of behavior that had caused friction in her personal relationships. Friends and acquaintances recalled heated arguments in the past, instances where Natalia's emotions seemed to get the better of her, yet no one could have imagined she was capable of violence on this scale. In the months leading up to the incident, Natalia's life had been complicated by her pregnancy. It was a pivotal time, and while some saw this as a moment of growth for her, others noted the stress it brought. Balancing the realities of impending motherhood with her personal challenges may have created a pressure Natalia struggled to manage. The added complexities of her relationships with those around her, both supportive and strained, painted a picture of a woman at a crossroads. On the night of the shooting, it's unclear what triggered the initial tension between Natalia and Gladys. Witnesses who were part of their social circle mentioned subtle disagreements earlier in the evening, but no one believed it would escalate to this extent. What we do know is that Natalia had brought a firearm with her that night, a decision that raised questions about was she carrying it out of fear for her safety, or was it a deliberate choice that hinted at a readiness to act if provoked? The police investigation revealed critical details about the weapon. Forensic analysis confirmed it was registered, but not to Natalia. This opened up another layer of inquiry. How did she come into possession of the gun? And why did she feel the need to have it with her during a night out? These questions became central to the case as investigators worked. Witness statements painted a picture of the moments leading up to the gunshot. Those in the car described how the argument escalated rapidly, the tension between Natalia and Gladys reaching a breaking point. But their accounts differed on key details. Some claimed Natalia seemed defensive, while others believed her actions were aggressive and unprovoked. The conflicting testimonies added to the uncertainty, leaving law enforcement to piece together a fractured narrative. Experts weighed in on the psychological aspects of the case, examining how seemingly small conflicts can escalate to violence under certain conditions. Dr. Marie Collins, a psychologist specializing in conflict resolution, explained how stress, combined with perceived threats, can lead to extreme reactions. In situations where emotions are heightened, rational thinking often takes a back seat, she noted. What might begin as a verbal disagreement can quickly become physical, especially when one or both parties feel cornered. Forensic evidence became a critical element in understanding what happened inside the Uber. The placement of the gunshot, the trajectory of the bullet, and even the angle of Natalia's arm were analyzed to determine whether the act could have been self-defense. Investigators also examined the physical positions of everyone in the car, reconstructing the scene. The autopsy report confirmed the devastating reality. Gladys Yvette Borcela had no chance of survival. The bullet struck a vital area, ending her life almost instantly. This detail raised further questions. Was Natalia aiming to incapacitate? Or was it a deliberate attempt to kill? In the weeks that followed, media coverage of the case intensified. Natalia's defense team argued that she acted to protect herself and her unborn child, claiming she felt threatened by Gladys's actions. But prosecutors painted a different picture, one of recklessness and disregard for human life. The public reaction was equally divided. Some sympathized with Natalia, viewing her as a young woman overwhelmed by fear and stress. Others condemned her actions, pointing to the irrevocable loss of Gladys's life and the impact on her 3 children, who would now grow up without their mother. What drove Natalia Harrell to that moment remains a question with no simple answers. Was it the culmination of personal struggles, a response to a perceived threat, or a tragic combination of factors that led to a decision she could never take back? As the legal battle unfolded, these questions would continue to haunt everyone involved, offering no clear resolution, but leaving behind a trail of heartbreak and debate. As we examine the events of that fateful night, we are left with more questions than answers. Could this tragedy have been avoided? Was there a moment, perhaps just seconds, when everything could have taken a different course? What do you think was the turning point in this devastating story? Was it the decision to bring a firearm into the situation? Was it the heated exchange of words that escalated beyond control? Or was this the result of deeper, hidden tensions that none of the passengers truly understood? And then there's the broader question, how can moments like this, where emotions run high and decisions are made in an instant, be de-escalated before they lead to such irreversible consequences? Could someone in the car have stepped in and calmed the situation? Could the driver, sensing the rising tension, have taken a different course of action? We want to hear from you. What do you think could have been done differently that night? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective is an important part of understanding not just this story, but the larger issues it reflects. And perhaps the most difficult question of all, where does accountability lie? Is this a case of self-defense, as Natalia Harrell claims, or a preventable act of violence that claimed the life of Gladys Yvette Borcela, leaving her children without a mother? Every story like this carries lessons about human behavior, about conflict, and about the decisions we make when emotions take over. What lessons do you take from this tragedy? We invite you to join the conversation. Your voice matters in unpacking the complexities of cases like this. Leave your thoughts, questions, and reflections in the comments. And if you've ever found yourself in a tense or volatile situation, let us know how you handled it. Together, we can explore ways to prevent tragedies like this from happening again. As the investigation unfolded, unexpected details began to emerge. Details that would cast new light on the relationship between Natalia Harrell and Gladys Yvette Borcela. While initial reports suggested the two women were casual acquaintances, witnesses came forward with stories that hinted at something more, a dynamic fraught with unspoken tension that had been simmering long before that night. Friends of the women described an uneasy connection. It was said that Natalia and Gladys had met through mutual acquaintances, and though they had shared a few social occasions together, their interactions were anything but warm. Some claimed that Natalia felt overshadowed by Gladys's vibrant personality, while others suggested that misunderstandings and minor conflicts had created a lingering animosity between them. Then, during the trial, a revelation came to light that no one expected. Natalia had confided in a friend earlier in the evening, expressing frustration about Gladys. She reportedly described her as too loud and too confrontational, comments that seemed insignificant at the time but would later be viewed as possible clues to her mindset that night. In the courtroom, witnesses recalled a moment in the Uber when Natalia made a chilling remark, one that had gone unnoticed in the immediate chaos of the crime. According to testimony, she turned to Gladys and said, "You're not going to talk to me like that." A simple sentence, but its tone and delivery painted a picture of a confrontation that had taken a dangerous. The defense also introduced a startling claim. Natalia had acted out of fear, believing that Gladys was preparing to physically harm her. It was a claim supported in part by a fragment of surveillance footage from earlier in the night, which showed an exchange between the two women at the venue they had visited. The footage, though grainy, appeared to show Gladys gesturing toward Natalia in what could have been perceived as an aggressive manner. But was it enough to justify Natalia's actions? And then there was the firearm. Prosecution evidence revealed that the weapon had not been concealed in Natalia's belongings but instead held openly in her purse, a detail that suggested forethought. Natalia's defense argued that she had carried it for protection given her pregnancy and concerns about safety, but prosecutors questioned why in that moment her first instinct was to reach for the weapon instead of attempting to defuse the argument. The trial also revealed another unsettling twist. A forensic expert testified that Gladys had been seated at an angle when she was shot, her posture turned slightly away from Natalia. This detail raised doubts about whether she was truly a threat at the time the gun was fired. If she had been retreating or simply trying to disengage, the claim of self-defense became far more tenuous. Throughout the proceedings, Natalia maintained her version of events, insisting that she acted to protect herself and her unborn child. But the evidence presented left more questions than answers. What was said in the final moments before the shot? Did Natalia genuinely feel her life was in danger? Or was this a moment of unchecked anger that escalated beyond her control? And then the courtroom was shaken once again when Natalia's defense introduced a highly controversial argument that her unborn child was being unlawfully imprisoned alongside her. It was a claim that divided public opinion, raising debates not only about the rights of the unborn, but also about the lengths to which Natalia might go to secure her freedom. These twists transformed what might have been a straightforward case into something far more complex, leaving everyone involved grappling with a series of haunting questions. What truly drove Natalia's actions that night? Was Gladys's death a preventable tragedy, or the result of deeper, hidden conflicts? And could Natalia's unborn child become the key to reshaping not only her fate, but the legal precedents surrounding such cases? Gladys Yvette Borcela was more than just a victim of a tragic crime. She was a mother, a 28-year-old woman whose world revolved around her 3 children. Every decision she made, every step she took, was with them in mind. She worked hard to provide for them, to ensure they had the opportunities she had dreamed of. To her friends and family, she was a bright light, someone who could always be counted on to lift others up, even when life wasn't easy for her. But now, her children face a future without their mother. They will grow up with memories that, for the youngest among them, may eventually fade. They will hear stories of her kindness, her strength, and her unwavering love, but they will never feel her embrace again. This loss is immeasurable, a void that will ripple through their lives in ways no one can truly comprehend. And what of the night that ended Gladys's life? Could it have been avoided? As we reflect on the events, one can't help but wonder about the choices made leading up to that moment. If the argument had been de-escalated, if words had been chosen more carefully, if a weapon hadn't been brought into the equation, perhaps Gladys would still be here today. This tragedy serves as a stark reminder of how quickly things can escalate when emotions run high. A disagreement, a moment of tension, can lead to irreversible consequences when there's no effort to diffuse the situation. It begs the question, how do we, as individuals, respond to conflict? Are we equipped to walk away, to calm ourselves, to seek resolution without resorting to violence? The presence of a firearm that night was no small factor. While Natalia Harrell claimed it was for protection, its presence turned what might have been a heated argument into a deadly encounter. The decision to carry a weapon into a situation like this raises important questions about responsibility, preparedness, and the dangers that come with such choices. For Natalia, this moment has forever changed her life. She now faces the weight of legal battles, public scrutiny, and the knowledge that a single decision ended another woman's life. Her unborn child, too, is part of this story. An innocent life caught in the middle of a tragedy that has sparked debate and division far beyond the courtroom. As we conclude this story, we are left with lessons we cannot ignore. The importance of managing conflict, the risks of impulsive decisions, and the profound impact our actions can have on others. But most of all, we are reminded of the fragility of life. For Gladys's family, the pain of her absence will never truly heal. Her children will carry the weight of her memory, and her friends will forever remember the joy she brought into their lives. And for all of us, her story stands as a call to reflect not only on this tragedy, but on the ways we can prevent similar losses in the future. The question remains, what will we take away from this story? How can we honor Gladys's life by ensuring that tragedies like this are not repeated? Perhaps it begins with understanding, with empathy, and with a commitment to resolving conflicts before they reach the point of no return. If this story moved you or left you with questions, we invite you to take a moment to reflect and share your thoughts. Your voice matters, and together, we can explore the deeper truths behind stories like this. If you believe stories like Gladys's should be told, and if you feel her life and legacy deserve to be remembered, please give this video a thumbs up. It may seem like a small gesture, but it helps ensure that these important conversations reach others who need to hear them. And if you'd like to continue exploring stories that uncover the complexities of human decisions, the fragility of life, and the lessons we can all take away, don't forget to subscribe. Here, we delve into the cases that need to be told, stories that challenge us, that move us, and that remind us of the power and consequences of our. Before you go, we encourage you to watch our next video, where we explore another case of lives forever changed by a single moment. Just click on the link and join us as we continue to uncover the truths behind some of the most impactful true crime stories of our time. Thank you for watching, for remembering Gladys, and for being part of this vital conversation. Until next time, take care of one another and remember the weight that even the smallest decisions can carry. Would you like me to provide a complete script by stitching all the sections together or assist further with any part of the process?